So you may be at a place where you're making a decent income as a household, yet the weight of your debt's pulling you down with a feeling like there's no end in sight. So whether you're making $200,000 a year or $50,000 a year, if your debt's continuously growing and you're feeling like you're not able to get it resolved, it can feel like an overwhelming burden looming over you. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk through 3 options that could help you avoid paying towards high interest. Now, before I get into the nuts and bolts of everything, I just want to give you a heads up. This video should not be taken as any kind of financial or legal advice, and this content is purely for informational purposes. Okay, so let's get into it. So if you're finding that your debt is at a point where you're not sure what to do anymore, it's either falling behind or you're worried that it could fall behind, you need to talk to someone, you're welcome to give us a call at 833-272-3631. Now, today though, I'm going to use a real life example of someone that we chatted with about their specific situation. Now, of course, we'll cover any of their personal information up just to keep it anonymous, but we'll use that to kind of help flow our video today. Okay, so let's get into the first option, Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So again, we're going to use that real life example. And so to keep things anonymous, let's call him Tony. Okay, so looking at Tony's calculator results, it looks like he makes $58,000 a year gross, so before taxes. And so the means test income for Chapter 7 for a household of 1 in the state of Texas looks like it's $59,000 a year. So if everything's accurate with this data, it looks like Tony may have a chance of qualifying for a Chapter 7, or at least pass the first part of the means test for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, if Tony was married or had any dependents he was responsible for, this may change the limit. And so a lot of folks that we chat with share, well, my spouse isn't filing with me, so why would I include their income? But the challenge is the court sometimes may look at the entire household as an income and expense perspective, even if they're not filing or not. If Tony was hoping to consider Chapter 7, it looks like it could potentially be feasible. He doesn't seem to have a home, so there's no real equity that he has to worry about in there. But keep in mind that if he did own a home, there may be exemptions in place for each state that could potentially protect your home, even if you're filing in Chapter 7. So it looks like Tony currently owns 1 vehicle and has 1 month in arrears, which in layman's terms means he's 1 month behind. So the court would need to see this in potentially good standing in order to have the loan reaffirmed, which is a whole thing, and kept outside of the bankruptcy. So reaffirmation is basically just, in a sense, a short, simple way of explaining, just keeping the loan out of the bankruptcy and continue to make payments as he did before. Okay, so one thing to note is that in the part of the calculator that asks why Tony's considering some sort of relief, he stated that he was facing a lawsuit. Now, if I'm on the phone with Tony, I would probably ask some more questions regarding this, such as have they already sued you? How recent was that? Have you received any kind of court summons? How much longer do you have to respond? Just a bunch of different questions to really understand where the lawsuit's at. Now, if proceeding with the route of a bankruptcy, technically Tony may receive what's called automatic stay, which provides legal protection from his creditors. So he may not actually be responsible for that if it's a debt collection lawsuit anymore. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the court also has exemptions for vehicles as well that will hopefully protect your vehicle if you're looking at a Chapter 7. The court is ultimately looking at, is there anything high in value that you own that could potentially be sold, liquidated, to pay back towards debt? And if the answer is no, then it may be a very simple Chapter 7 and you pretty much keep most of all your belongings, but that's something to potentially confirm with an attorney about. And in terms of finding an attorney, it can be helpful to look for one locally with great reviews and everything. So if you have questions on that, you can always give us a call. Okay, I want to quickly pause because there's a lot of information and just kind of break this up and just take a moment to quickly request you, if you feel like this video has been helpful, just to light up that like button. YouTube and ourselves, we find it super encouraging to see because it helps YouTube know that this video is beneficial to others, and we're just trying to help people get unbiased information about all these different options. Let's now move on to Chapter 13. So there's Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and now we're going into Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So Chapter 13, people tend to utilize this option a little bit more if they're not potentially able to qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, whether it's due to income, recently filing a 7, or maybe if the other thing would be if they have a high valued asset at risk. Now, there of course are other things. If they're behind on a secured asset and they need to get it caught up and they have no other way of doing it, then that's where a Chapter 13 can help too. But in a sense, Chapter 13 is really just a restructured payment plan over a 3 or 5 year plan. So in Tony's case, it doesn't really look, there's a lot of reasons where he would really jump to a 13. Since it's 7, should be quicker, cheaper, and ultimately just a little bit more fit towards what he's looking for. Okay, so now let's talk about debt consolidation and what that all looks like as a whole. So aside from bankruptcy, there are other options to look at, like consolidation loans, debt management, or if you're falling behind, maybe something like debt settlement. Now, these options may not be as effective if Tony's facing a lawsuit. So a consolidation loan may be very hard to qualify if your credit's not in a good spot. And if you have a debt collection lawsuit, that would potentially mean that something was behind and then a creditor filed a lawsuit. So it'd probably be hard to qualify for a loan at that point. But anyway, a debt management option may also not be super helpful for Tony's case specifically, because debt management's more where you're going to just reduce the interest rates on credit cards. So you're not going to see a huge drop in monthly payments, but also if there's a lawsuit, the debt management's not going to really do much with that. Although he could try to do something combination where he resolves some of the accounts with debt management and then he just personally tries to resolve that lawsuit. But then again, it may be too challenging. So the other thing is debt settlement. And that's where you're either falling behind the debt or you're already past due, and then you're going to negotiate with the creditors for a smaller balance. Now, this could be a potential option because in this sense, you could try to negotiate on that lawsuit and then do the same thing with the other accounts, but it just depends how recent the summons was, or depending how much the lawsuit's for and how much money he has to settle with them. Okay, so to kind of bring this all together. So ultimately, the route you choose to go for with any kind of relief is completely up to you. Our goal here is not to advise, steer you one way or another, but based on the data you provide us, our goal is to help inform you on what the different options are that may fit what you're looking for, depending. Now, if you're dealing with a situation where your debt's becoming overwhelming and you're just not sure what to do, please feel free to give us a call at 833-272-3631. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.